This is Atlanta Pride's Our Founding Valentines event. It's an event to honor elders and pioneers in the community. We've been doing this for a few years now, going decade by decade, starting with people who were active in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now we're in the 2000s, so relatively contemporary folks who've done amazing work in the Atlanta queer community, and we're just thanking them for the work they've done, the work they continue to do, and honoring them because so often our history goes untold, unrecognized, and we want to keep that alive for people, and also just say thank you to people who have done behind-the-scenes works for their whole lives.
Yes, I was at the first one, and I was at every event, I believe. It's a good way to celebrate Valentine's Day, I think. And I can't think of any other way except sending a card, please.
We try to get people from diverse backgrounds, diverse issue areas. This year we have people who've worked in politics and reproductive justice. We have people who have been career activists and people who have had completely different careers and done this work for their unpaid passions. And so it's a pretty diverse group. We try to get a mix of genders and backgrounds and people who do work in different areas so that we have a little bit of a broad picture of what's going on in the community in each of the years that we're recognizing.
My name is Taylor. I am the Events and Outreach Coordinator at Atlanta Pride. Tonight, of course, is Our Founding Valentines. It's our 4th annual one, honoring the activists and change makers from the 2000s. So it's a really wonderful event. We're honoring 7 different people, and a lot of these people still actively today are making moves on the scene. So I'm really happy and honored to be here.
I just think it's important to kind of remember what's been a part of our community in the past, what our history is, who's gone before us, who's paved the way for us. So that's kind of why I'm here.
I think that a lot of people nowadays don't really take advantage, they take too much advantage of what others have already done and just not recognize it. And I think tonight is really important to shine the spotlight back on the people that actually fought to make life better in the city.
I am Brian Pryor, also Nicole Page Brooks, and I came here to support Bubba Delicious, who is being honored this evening. But I'm also honored that I have a friendship and have been inspired by this man since I arrived in Atlanta in '97, seeing him at the Amorettes and him perpetuating and giving back to the community any way that he knows how.
Of course, we have people like Simone Bell, obviously from Lambda Legal. We have Kathy Willard, who ran an amazing race for city mayor. We have Dazon Diallo, who can't make it tonight, but we have somebody speaking on her behalf. We have Vandy Beth Glenn. We have Larry Pellegrini, who is here in an amazing suit. So we have a good bit of people. Well, I definitely think that we don't honor our elders as much as we should. I think sometimes we get so caught up in current progress that we don't take time to say thank you for paving the way, because a lot of the things they've done, people who are honoring tonight, if they hadn't made that step or made that change, we wouldn't be doing the things that we are doing tonight. So I think this is something that should happen more often, not just once a year, but even monthly, more often.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Jamie Ferguson. I'm the Executive Director of Atlanta Pride, and I am happy to welcome you to our annual event, Our Founding Valentines. It's an event that Pride, along with Touching Up Our Roots, and Dave Hayward, who you'll meet shortly, started a few years ago to really honor people who have been trailblazers and activists and lifelong workers in the queer community here in Atlanta who've all brought very special things and benefited our community as a whole. And so this is a fun event for us where we're able to recognize some people, oftentimes whose work goes either unrecognized or unrecognized. And so it's a time where we can say thank you and kind of in the spirit of Valentine's Day, love and appreciation come together. We're also, the event is also being filmed. We share it on Facebook, and it's available for people to watch if they're not able to come out on a school night in the middle of the week. So I want to just say thank you to a handful of people who made this evening possible. First of all, Outfront Theater Company, who has given us the space for this event. AARP has helped us financially provide some of the food and the gifts, as well as Whole Foods. Swimming Richards has given some donation events as well, and we also have Madeline Pluck, Heather Garancha, and Leo.
Holland.
Leo.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Holland.
Holland, sorry,
Yeah.
I forgot the last name. But Leo, who are filming for us, or Madeline Pluck, they're an amazing documentary team here in Atlanta, and they're helping to memorialize this event. So not only can those of us in the room hear about the work of these folks, but also it's something that we can share for a long time. And I also want to just give you a couple of dates of things coming up on the Pride calendar that might be of interest to you. We have a volunteer meet and greet March 6th. We're looking for some new folks to join our team. If you're interested in getting involved either with the Pride Festival or our year-round programming, we do about 60 events throughout the year. We'd love to see you for that. And then also an important date that I think will relate to a lot of people in this room is our Grand Marshal nominations open March 15th. So as you may or may not know, Grand Marshal nominations are open to the community, and we select Grand Marshals every year from the people that you nominate for us. So I would encourage you, if you're inspired by the stories here tonight, by the stories of other people you know in the community, please, please, please help us and give us a good pool. We can only select from the pool that we have, so I invite you to submit there. I also want to say thank you to our Pride team. We have some volunteers who worked very hard tonight to make this happen, and our staff. I want to say thank you to one person in particular. So this is Taylor Trimble. Taylor's our outreach and event specialist and has coordinated this from the Pride and for the most part. And it also happens to be Taylor's birthday. And she produced an event on your birthday. We just wanted to say thank you. And so Kim, who's also on our staff, is bringing out. We have a little thank you for Taylor. And I wanted to recognize someone working on their birthday. So I'm a bad singer, so hopefully you'll help me and sing happy birthday to Taylor.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Taylor. Happy birthday to you.
And now the trick is that they have to work, and so they can't even eat something for them. Maybe we need really fast little day talks. But again, thank you for coming. I hope to see you at some future Pride events, and look forward to meeting all of you that I haven't met yet.
Thank you, Jamie. And before we begin, we're going to bring to the stage somebody who was very instrumental in making this event happen. So please welcome to the stage the coordinator for Touching Up Our Roots, Mr. Dave Hayward.
Welcome to the View. Always wanted to say that. So, we came up with this back in 2002, Touching Up Our Roots at Georgia's LGBT History Project, and I was really excited one time when I got to talk to a reporter from the Wall Street Journal because I said that to him and he burst out laughing. I said, yes, that's the idea. Have fun with this. We all need to touch up our roots in case we happen to have roots. So what I wanted to do is sort of set the scene and talk about a few other things that are coming up. There's an LGBT senior group called SAGE, and they're going to be showing Bayard Rustin, the documentary on Bayard Rustin, Brother Outsider, and that'll be on Thursday, February 22nd. It's at 11 a.m. Because most of the people in SAGE are retired. So it's 11 a.m. at the Rush Center Annex, just behind the Rush Center, but I wanted to put that out there. And then also we're partnering with Theatrical Outfit, which is doing Perfect Arrangement. And we're going to do a talk back with them on Wednesday, February 28th. And that's downtown, is a theater downtown, Theatrical Outfit. And Perfect Arrangement is about the Red Scare in the 50s and the 60s. And it's about a lesbian and a gay man who get married. It's the perfect arrangement. So we're going to do a talk back, and that'll be after the show on Wednesday, February 28th. And we have a guy, Richard Rose, who kind of lived through some of that, through some of the Red Scare. So let's see. I have some notes here. What I wanted to say also is that there's been so many changes over the 2000s, and when you look at the things that have happened, as early as 2004, we had a vote that amended the Georgia State Constitution to prohibit same-sex marriage. So that was just, when you think of the decade of 2000, 2010, that was just back in 2004. And so luckily the Supreme Court has nullified all that, so thank God for that. But it's astonishing when you look at the things that have happened. And then the raid on the Atlanta Eagle, that was September 10th, 2009. And when you look at things like that, the progress that has been made is that there's been plenty of other raids in the past. But in this case, when the Red Dog Unit of the police raided the Atlanta Eagle, the people that they terrorized and shoved to the bar, to the ground, to the floor of the bar, received a lump sum of $1.25 million. So, yay. So that is indeed progress. And the last thing I want to say is that next year, when we do our founding Valentines, it occurred to me that this is going to be the 50th anniversary, as we know, of Stonewall, right, in 1969. And it's also the 50th anniversary of everything that started here in August of 1969, when again another police raid, our wonderful police raids, raided the Ensign Mini Cinema that was showing Andy Warhol's Lonesome Cowboys. And that was the catalyst for the Georgia Gay Liberation Front to start here, and that was in August of 1969. So that would be the 50th anniversary, and we're hoping to honor, unfortunately, a lot of the people that started that are no longer here. So we do want to definitely honor the people that started the Georgia Gay Liberation Front back in 1969 and brought us to where we are today. There is one person, Burl Boykin, who was a major founder who's still with us, and he's in a long-term care facility, but we definitely want to be honoring him. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, we're going to get this show on the road. So first stop, we are going to honor Dr. Dazon Dixon Diallo, who will be then honored by Ms. Lisa Diane. So a little background info in case you're also reading in the program. Dr. Diallo is a visionary upholding women's rights and reproductive justice as the founder of Sister Love in 1989, the first women's HIV and reproductive justice organization in the Southeast. Dazon started the first transitional housing program for HIV-positive women and children in the South. She has pioneered in HIV treatment by developing Healthy Love, a prevention intervention that is a part of the CDC National Compendium, and she is a co-chair of the Fulton County HIV Task Force. Dazon embraces a long-term vision for HIV-positive women's leadership. She convenes the U.S. Women in PrEP Working Group, the only national coalition of women focusing on HIV and biomedical prevention. However, she has made time for the past 23 years to host the weekly Sisters Time, celebrating Black women on WRFG Radio 89.3 FM. So, with all of our honorees this evening, we will have people who we appreciate them before they come and take to the microphone. So we are going to now appreciate Dr. Dazon Dixon Diallo.
Yeah.
Lisa Diane White, and I'm the Deputy Director at Sister Love Incorporated. And you've heard about the wonderful things that Dazon Dixon has done, and I've had the pleasure of working with her for the past 14 years. And one of the things I wanted to note is that when we started the Love House, this is where we began a women's and children's home for transitioning who needed housing. And this is during the time where people were put out of their homes because they had HIV. People did not understand, what the disease was, how it was spread, and there was such a lot of stigma. And I would like to say that has changed, but that has not. There's still a lot of stigma, and there's a lot of stigma because people don't know about HIV. And so what we do at Sister Love, under the leadership of Dazon Dixon Diallo, is talk about HIV, how to prevent HIV, how to live with HIV, and how to reduce the stigma. And so we talk about being positive, and we talk about, you know, being out your status, and being out at your decision and when you're ready. And so this is the work that we've championed. And the Love House, it sundowned in 2000, but again, you know, housing is still an issue for women and children. And so we are still doing the work because the work needs to be done. And so as I stand here and I accept this award on her behalf, and the agency and all of the people who work tirelessly for the past 29 years to do this work, I'm just saying that we're excited. By July, we will be celebrating 29 years of being in existence. And I'm just excited to be here before we move on to our 30th anniversary to talk about why it's still necessary to do this work, why we are happily doing this work. And what we say is that when you address the woman, you address her family, her children, and her community. And so when we talk about HIV, we talk about HIV from a community perspective, but we begin with women. And so I thank you on behalf of Days on Dixon Yellow, and I am pleased to be here to accept this award on her behalf.
Also, with honoring people afterwards, we'll be passing thank you cards throughout the audience. That Kim, everybody say hi, Kim. Kim will be making sure these make the rounds in the audience. So please appreciate these wonderful people who have made changes and have made movements that allow us to move today. So, ready to keep going? All right. Next up, we are honoring Vandy Beth Glenn. Vandy Beth Glenn also is a history maker, initiating a federal lawsuit in 2007 along with Lambda Legal when she was fired for transitioning while working as a legislative editor at the Georgia General Assembly. On December 6, 2011, the 11th Circuit Court ruled that Georgia had discriminated against her. Thus, transgender people are now protected from employment discrimination by the government in Georgia, and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission recognizes trans rights. Vandy Beth is also the first trans person to testify before a congressional committee. At the present time, she is writing her autobiography and developing a TV show based on her extraordinary experiences. Through all travails, Vandy Beth's sardonic sense of humor stands her in good stead. Be sure to ask her about her special affinity for sunshine, lollipops, and puppies. So, before we bring Vandy Beth to the microphone, we have an appreciation.
Hi, I'm calm as an emotion, and I'm just going to say a few words. So several years ago, I had a job that I loved, one which I saw as a passion and a career, one in which I had the opportunity to positively influence other people, one in which I was ultimately fired from because I'm transgender. I was young, I had little savings, and I had no way to stand up for myself and fight for this job I loved. I had to accept what happened and continue on with my life. Many trans people share similar stories to this and understand how devastating this would be to someone so young and bright and hopeful. Someone who already had to fight a million other battles for housing, healthcare, and even just acceptance. The individual I'm introducing tonight has helped to fight for myself and other trans people, to help eliminate one of the many battles we have to fight for in our lives every day. She was fired for transitioning in her job and had the courage and drive to fight. Fight not just for herself, but to fight for all trans people. She initiated a federal lawsuit in 2007, one which would last over 4 years. She was the first trans person to testify before a congressional committee. She fought and she prevailed. The decision of her case would extend employment discrimination protections to transgender people everywhere. Her name is Vandy Beth Glenn, and I'm very excited to honor her tonight. There we go. Can you all hear me? Oops.
You might want to hold it
All right.
in your hand. Yeah.
I'll do the Wayne Newton with it then. Hi, I'm Vandy Beth Glenn. Thank you all for honoring me here tonight. It's quite a privilege, and
very humbling. And I don't have too terribly much to say. Certainly my work currently is not as important as that of all the other people that I'm sharing the stage with tonight. But I want to talk a little about something I haven't said much in most of the my public appearances when I've talked about what my experiences. I was working at the state capitol in 2007 when I was transitioning, and when I was fired by my boss for being transgender. I had only been there for a couple of years. Prior to working at the Capitol, I worked in the private sector. I was an IT nerd, and when the opportunity came up to go work for the state government, one of the deciding factors for me in changing jobs was the fact that it was a job with the government, and I was in the early stages of my transition at the time in 2005, and so one very strong motivator for me to make that job change was the fact that I was moving from the private sector to the public sector. And I remember thinking to myself, and even telling a few of my friends, well, I want to go work for the government. In the private sector, there's all sorts of discrimination, but if you're working for the government, they take care of you, and they don't discriminate against you for things like that. Needless to say, I got rather a rude awakening not long after that, when Mr. Brumby fired me. Sewell Brumby was my boss. He was the boss who decided that having a transgender person working in the state capitol would be seen by the legislators as immoral and would make my coworkers uncomfortable, which he thought were great reasons to fire somebody. Of course, I went to Land Legal, which then and now included Simone Bell, and with their help, we launched a federal lawsuit. We won at the federal district court level, and we won again at the circuit court level, which established that state government employees throughout Georgia, Alabama, and Florida cannot be fired for being transgender.
Yeah.
So, government employees. When you think about government employees and being transgender and having trouble with their employment, one of the first category of people you think of is school teachers. And I can't tell you how many school teachers, trans school teachers, have come up to me in the years since my case was decided, and have told me how grateful they are for our precedent, because they have, partly because of our case, they have managed to transition and keep their jobs as school teachers. Almost always their bosses don't know about the case Glenn v. Brumby, but when they threaten to fire their transgender teachers, they go and talk to an attorney, and then they find out very quickly about the precedent that was set by Glenn v. Brumby. And so that is probably the single thing that I'm most proud of, is the fact that so many school teachers, transgender school teachers, have been able to stay on the job and to keep, warping the minds of the next generation. And I think it's fair to say I've been a little complacent over the past few years, because there was our lawsuit win. There have been several others in the years since then, and even in the years before that, and several state governments, not Georgia, but several state governments have been passing more inclusive laws and more protections. And in the workplace, it's been getting a lot better for trans people and for LGBT people generally. So I was starting to feel like the war was pretty much over. There's just a few little brush fires remaining to be fought. In the past year, I've not been feeling that way so much anymore. I'm starting to understand that this really is a very long process and a very long war to fight, and we're going to have to keep fighting it. It's not something that I want to do. I'd rather stay home with my partner and Netflix and chill, but we can't do that. There's still a lot of war left for us to fight. So that is something that I keep in my head every single day, and I hope the rest of you do. But I'm still remain optimistic. This is a battle that we're going to win, and full equality is something that is going to happen in most of our lifetimes. So I believe that, and I want all the rest of you to believe that as well. But thank you all again very much for honoring me here tonight. It's a real privilege to share the stage with these people.
Thank you so much, Vandy Beth Glenn. Also, reminder, we are passing around thank you cards. So Vandy Beth's thank you card is about to make its rounds. All right, how are y'all feeling out there? Good? If you're excited to be here, make some noise. Thank you. I know it's a Tuesday, but we're here. All right, so next up, we are going to honor the ever so fierce and fabulous Bubba Delicious. Bubba, also known by his alter ego as Jim Marks, answered a dare over 30 years ago to perform on stage and became part of the Armorettes, the infamous drag queens of the South. Now, he is a drag icon hosting weekly at the Lips Showcase on Beaufort Highway and is the mistress of all he surveys at Sunday brunch, warbling gospel hymns. Bubba's signature line is, "Hold on to your pearls, kiddies." Long a one-of-a-kind caustic MC and host, Bubba has helped HIV/AIDS and numerous other LGBT causes raise over $4.2 million for local and national groups. Indeed, yes, applause for that. Indeed, in his other life as Jim, he has been Deputy Director and Chief Financial Officer for AIDS Atlanta, and also was the CFO for the NAMES Project AIDS Memorial Quilt. Nevertheless, perhaps one of his proudest titles was being bestowed Miss Cypress Street in 1989. So, to honor Bubba Delicious, welcome to the stage Alyssa Brooks and Nicole Page Brooks.
Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa Brooks. I'm a fellow entertainer here in Atlanta, and I moved here about 7 years ago, and my first cast position was with Bubba at Las Margaritas for Dragamundo. I learned a lot through Bubba in that experience, but most of all I learned that there's never enough charity work that you can do, and there's no limit to any amount that you can be involved in. And through Bubba, she's inspired me to want to do more. Every event that I go to, well, except this one, Bubba's at. So it's just very inspiring to see someone of her caliber to come in and always be a part of something good. So that's inspired me and my generation to want to continue to do more. Unfortunately, Bubba can't be here, so Nicole is going to accept the award on her behalf.
And I'm as disappointed as all of you are. I'm so sorry. But first I want to say thank you to all of you for making my life so easier and everything you've done. You are currently, I have so many trans people in my life. I don't want to cry on people, but so many trans people in my life that you've made their life so much simpler. All of you made our life so much simpler. I get to wear a wig, and that's my living. I get to make fun of people, and that's my living because y'all have done so much things that I don't have to do. I'm sure you've all heard of Queens Unite, which Alyssa Brooks and the rest of the girls at Burkhart's have taken a stance against racism and poor pay and things like that. And y'all are the inspiration and the backbone of that. And so don't ever think that you're not current, because you'll always be current. Because without you doing what you've done, we're so blessed and easy. So now to on Sunday night, I waited in line, which is something I don't have to do anymore, thank God. But there was a huge line. We went to see this free show where these people were swinging from the rafters, and they were raising money for HIV and finding a cure and finding ways to make people living with HIV easier. And I was thinking, these people are here doing this for free, you know, and volunteering their time. Then years later, Bubba was working at Nikimoto's, and come to find out that was his first paying job. We've seen Bubba. His first paying job as an entertainer, and that was overwhelming to me. And then I started to work with PALS, and that's where he is tonight. He's still doing PALS Bingo. He's been doing that since 1997. I have a little, okay, here, hold on. That'll be so inspiring. I was on my way here to support him, and he sent me this text saying, "Can you go and represent me?" And I was like, "I'm so thin, they will never believe I'm never And I said, "Well, what do you want me to say?" And I asked him, I said, "So how many years have you been doing PALS?" And he says, 21 years hosting PALS since 1997, 12 years as an honorette, 89 through 2001, served on the board of directors of several organizations, Haven House, AIDS treatment in what's that word? Initiative, I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic. Initiative, PALS, Hotlanta River Expo, Hotlanta Softball, elected to the Gay Softball Hall of Fame in 2006, HRC Humanitarian Award in 2002, Pride Grand Marshal in 2003, make some noise for that, nominated for the award. Former CFO of Brady Infectious Disease, CFO of Aid Atlanta and the Names Project, etc. I asked him who he wanted me to thank. He said friends, family, friends, fans, armorettes, and all Atlanta drag queens, especially in PB, for being here for me tonight. I want to say, Bella kind of made a point to me a long time ago that, well, just watching her, that all my bills are paid by the tips we make and the community supporting me, and the only way I feel to give back is charity. And the Amorettes and Bubba has always given back to charity, and you just have very few opportunities to actually give back to your community. So thank you all for showing up and supporting these honorees, and hopefully one day I'll be accepting this award. Last tidbit, safe sex is only sex. If you're gonna fist somebody, use a glove. That's what Bubba taught us.
Thank you, Nicole. So our next honoree is Mr. Larry Pellegrini. So there's so many accomplishments in this bio. Here we go. Larry has lived in Georgia since 1972, initially spending almost 20 years in corporate human resources positions. But it was 1990 when he had his coming out and immediately began a new career in LGBT community advocacy. His first exposure to the community was as a volunteer with Southern Voice, compiling lists of gay groups and resource organizations. He thought they were all just great, so he joined almost all of them. This introduction to the community, including being the Gold Dome lobbyist for GAPAC, GAPAC, the political organization that was the predecessor to Georgia Equality. At this time, he also was a coordinator with the Queer Nation Cracker Barrel campaign, fighting for employment non-discrimination. The Cracker Barrel campaign was a defining moment for him because, as he says, it had the greatest people involved and the greatest learning opportunity for how to fight for economic and social justice. The first time he went to the Capitol as an openly gay lobbyist, he came to the conclusion that no permanent social change would occur if advocates operated out of silos. So what he learned, he put to use in coalition building and issue-based advocacy campaigns. He intends to continue doing that as long as he is able to work. So we honor Mr. Larry Pellegrini.
I'm still laughing at the last comment. Okay, I'm gonna try to change the tone a little bit. Up until whenever James emailed me, I think it was like 2 or 3 days ago, I had no idea who Larry Pellegrini was. And I started researching, and because of the type of man that Mr. Pellegrini is, there isn't a lot on the internet about him. He's very much a behind-the-scenes type of guy, and I met him today, and he said that that's the type of guy that he chooses to be. Nothing wrong with that. Me, on the other hand, I like to act like I'm a behind-the-scenes type of guy. I'm not. I am very open, very outspoken. I'm gay, obviously. And I am Afro-Latino. That's something I'm very proud of. I'm also a musician and a pastor and an educator and a mentor. And one of the things that I've realized over the past few days, trying to get a sense of who Mr. Pellegrini is that I wouldn't have the opportunity or the nerve to be open and proud of who I am as a person if not for people like him. And understanding being a gay Afro-Latino pastor in the South, I just moved here from South Carolina, God's country. Yeah, it's
God bless you.
yeah, it's a lot. And it took a lot of courage, and it took me understanding the power and the nerve and just the gangster mentality of those that come before me. So with all that said, if you are in this room and you are open and proud of who you are, then please join us in taking this moment to appreciate Mr. Larry Pellegrini.
As far as South Carolina, glad you're here, and God had nothing to do with it. Thanks for the intro. What is written in the book is a mystery to me. It's like every other sentence, there are 3 sentences in between. So when I flip the switch, that's sort of how I talk. I've got a lot to say because I feel like the experiences I've had in the community and the ability to do things in the way that I thought would be beneficial, I've really appreciated. So I'm at the point in my life too where it's time to tell the stories. If I get hit by a truck, I want some people to know what I have found out over the years, either about some of those folks under the Gold Dome. If I thought of writing a book, I always say, some of them down there will pay me not to write a book. But generationally, I came out really late, and it was, and as I talk about some of the things that I've done, I want to do a shout out to some people along the way who I hope can be motivating to all of us and an example to all of us. But I'd never said the word queer out loud, but I joined Queer Nation. And Lynn Cothran, Cheryl Somerville, her partner Sandy Riley, were an extraordinary first group of people to work with, along with the other Queer Nation people, who were all winging it. It was all brand new at that time. And I think we saw a change in the country because HRC was looking at amending the Civil Rights Code of 1964 in the national effort. But the success, I think, of the Cracker Barrel employment discrimination campaign that we had shifted all that, and then we had ENDA. So I felt really fortunate with some extraordinary people. Lynn Cothran put us through nonviolence training at the King Center. We practiced getting handcuffed and slammed against the wall and all those kind of things. I filmed my own arrest. I had a camera on my shoulder when the Cracker Barrel security people came for me. I filmed my own assault when a guy at Morrow took a swing in the parking lot. There were a few splinters on the closet door, and I had to hurry home right before a 2020 show came up that featured Cracker Barrel, so I could tell my folks, because I hadn't gotten around to that yet. But it was really fortunate to start out that way, and I want to encourage involvement if you have an interest in doing anything to hook up with a group that can give you that opportunity. The experience at Southern Voice was good exposure because I had no clue that what the gay community was all about. I was totally ignorant of what it was all about. I sort of thought when you came out they'd give you a boyfriend and a dog, and I didn't know there was more to it. But I think it was at Sobo that Kathy, collecting sodomy reform cards, postcards, said, "Why don't you go down to the Capitol?" And what did I know? This was like within a month of even coming out and doing anything at all. And I always say, most of the folks down at the Capitol at that time, the good old boys, had never even said the word sodomy out loud, let alone be thinking of repealing it. And if I had known what it was like, I may not have set foot in the place, but I had no clue. But it became a challenge, for me especially, because I thought what's supposed to happen is you tell them what you need, and then they'll do it. They just don't have somebody to tell them. That was naive, but it became a challenge, and you sort of want to walk in every day and say, if I don't have the votes to pass something good, how do I outmaneuver those who want to do something bad? So that's almost a 30-year career now. And after a long day today, I could tell you even more stories. But how many of you have never been to your capital? Well, just a few, so that's a good crowd. It's not quite as orderly and professional as a lot of people think. So it is a challenge, and although they're only there 40 days, ultimately, thank goodness they're only there 40 days. And I've had a chance to be a part of the ACLU board for 20 years. I helped form a lot of groups, especially since the immigrant community over the years has not had many advocacy groups until recently. They had their hands full with client services over the years. So I helped form advocacy groups in the Latino and Asian American community. And I'm working with them now as they have fully developed, and it's been a really good experience. Worked on changing the Georgia flag, and well, that taught me a lot too. I was the only white boy in the room after one conversation, and they said, "You write the press release." And I said, "How could they do that?" They said, "Well, it's coalition building. We want you to do it." And that was further encouragement to be thinking about putting people together. So the Rural Urban Summit, an organization that is a network of progressive groups, is sort of how I in particular have been able to get involved in different things. And as Dave beats me up to take my boxes of papers and memorabilia and all that and put them in the museum, I'm ready. The time has come to share the stories I want to share with other people too, but also to have some of the stories be recorded so they're not forgotten. So bear with me if you hear a story that may not have been told before. something behind the scenes from Cracker Barrel or Olympics out of Cobb or whatever, because I'm convinced now that we don't want to lose those experiences. But mine have been great, so thanks. Thanks to all of you, the community.
Thank you so much. We are going to pass around a thank you card for Larry. So we'll begin that right here. Thank you. All right. So, up next, we have Kathy Woolard. Kathy Woolard has scored heights unlike any other LGBT person here. Not only the first openly LGBT person ever elected to office in 1997 to the City Council, she then became the first woman to become president of the City Council in 2001. While there, Kathy helped ban discrimination in employment, housing, and public accommodations for LGBT people for the first time, and later added gender identity to those protections. Probably her most tangible legacy is championing the 22-mile Beltline, transforming Atlanta from a car-crazed city to one where people can walk to work and play in town. After working for Georgia Equality in Atlanta, Kathy became a formidable candidate for mayor. Stay tuned for new peaks. We honor Kathy Woolard.
So for those of y'all who don't know me, I'm Charlie Payne. I just graduated from College of Charleston about 2 weeks ago. And I just met Kathy about a year and a half ago, maybe. And she's actually been a life changer for me. I started out doing a bunch of preservation work in my own neighborhood of Druid Hills. But then after meeting you, Kathy, I've fallen in love with this city and seeing what people can do when we band together. The Beltline, when I was a kid, I didn't really think too much of it. I guess I didn't understand what you did with the non-discrimination ordinance as well, because I haven't had to deal with that growing up in town, and you were able to do that when I was so young. So thank you for everything, and love you. Please run for mayor again.
I forgot to wear my right shoes. Thanks, Charlie. Well, I did want to correct one thing, Taylor. I actually did include gender identity in the non-discrimination thing. But the gender identity thing is when I got on councils, my predecessor had helped put sexual orientation into the city's employee code, but gender identity wasn't in it. So I added that. But then when we did the big non-discrimination thing, we had gender identity and sexual orientation. And I'm really proud of that because it was a long time ago. And my colleagues were just kind of like, okay, don't let us get in trouble. It's like, we'll be fine. And we were. Thanks for this. It's great. What I thought I'd say is, it's been so great listening to y'all's stories, and I'll be happy to hear Simone's. I too got arrested at a Cracker Barrel, and it was one of the highlights. It was me and my now wife, and Cheryl Somerville and her wife, and a whole bunch of guys. And they strip searched Karen and I and the girls, and Cheryl and my wife cried. And then they put us all in a cell together. They put the girls in a cell together and the boys in a cell together, and the guys were all singing show tunes, and our wives were crying. And we were still, then we thought it was pretty funny that they put all the girls together, because we were, having a good time, except we were very well along our way in our relationship, so we didn't have nearly as much fun as we might have. But we acted like total whores and just raised hell once we started feeling better about getting strip searched at the Cracker Barrel in Union City. And so that's why I love being an activist, because things like that happen to you. I guess all I want to say is I started in this movement in 1986 when the Hardwick decision happened, and I never thought that I was going to grow up to be a gay activist. I didn't know that I was actually going to grow up to be much of anything. My teen years weren't a whole lot of fun, and I wasn't really sure how I was going to come out to anybody, but I got really mad about that decision because I thought it was a really bad decision. And so my friends were like, well, you're ruining the party, so why don't you go do something about it? And so that's how I got started. And it really led to a life, a life of being out and being a whole lot more healthy about myself. And it led to a career in politics, which I have loved more than I would have ever imagined. It led me to meet my wife at a 24-hour AIDS rally at our state capitol 29 years ago, when Charlie Brown, the drag queen, almost got killed at midnight on the Capitol steps for insulting lesbians, and it was going to be bad. Another interesting story we could talk about, but for those of you who were there at the time. But it's been a great life, and what I would say to those of you who are younger, I'm not done yet. You're just getting started, and it's a really great way to spend a life exploring the kinds of things you can do to make the world a better place, and whether it's in gay stuff or other kinds of civil rights or the environment or making puppies happy, whatever it takes, like make your life about that. Don't just let it happen to you, but get involved in it and bring yourself to it. And I can assure you that when you reach my age, which is a lot older than I ever thought I'd get to be, you can look back and think that you lived your life well. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And of course, once again, passing on this thank you card. Be wary, because sometimes it comes through different rows. All right. So, Simone Bell. So many things I can say about Simone Bell. Just personally, she has been a guiding force in the way that I go about community organizing and activism, and somebody that I have listened to so many times on panels and seeing the work that she does, and I'm very glad to have honoring her tonight, so I will read the bio. Simone Bell made history when she became the first out African-American woman to be elected to any state legislature anywhere in the United States. In 2009, she won election from District 58 to the House of Representatives and served in several leadership positions, including Chief Deputy Whip until 2015. Now, Simone is Southern Regional Director for Lambda Legal, the country's largest legal entity advocating for LGBT people. She is expanding Lambda Legal's outreach in 10 states for public policy, development, and communication. Prior to her political gig, Simone worked for Lambda Legal from 2006 to 2009 as a Southern Regional Office Outreach Associate, traveling across the South to advocate for healthcare, workplace equality, and safe schools for all children, and combating HIV and AIDS discrimination. Truly a cornerstone of our community, Simone is the poster child for us aspiring to our full human and civil rights. So, to appreciate Simone Bell is somebody I also appreciate, and I'm glad she's here, the lovely Park Cannon.
So I have prepared a very short poem. Simone Bell, now working at LL. I thank you for being, believing, and seeing my heart swell at the opportunity to make Georgia anew and follow you in Queer House District 58 Part 2. So, in case y'all didn't know, when Simone decided that she was able to take a position with Lambda Legal and continue her work in all of the South instead of just Georgia, she called me up on this little iPhone. I was on MARTA, and said, would you think about running for office? I said, yeah. I'm like sweating. And she's like, all right, well, let's meet tomorrow. We hung up the phone. The next day we met at Honey Bubble. And, you know, if you can't tell, I like a good shoe, outfit, whatever.
And so I'm like, oh my God, what am I gonna wear? You know, my state representative is like calling me, I need to figure out what to wear. I buy a whole new dress and arrive, of course, at Honey Bubble. And you know, she's here casual, just like ready to move on with her life. But since then, I've been looking back on the things you've been doing, Simone. In that time when I was not even realizing that I was a political baby queer. So 2 years ago this week, you posted the photo of me and my mom at the swearing in at the Georgia House of Representatives. I really wanted to thank you for that. And 3 years ago, you posted about how a preacher of the day at the Capitol called LGBT rights, which under the misnomer and conversation around religious liberty, was actually erotic liberty. And you told him off. You told him he was a disgrace to the clergy. And I just thought that was so amazing. So I really just want to thank you for some of the notable work that you have done being out in the community over the years since 2009. But then also thank you for what you're doing right now. You're still giving us internet shade. I mean, you are really making us live. So some of your notable hashtags right now, of course, are things like never give up, you know, and some other shady things. But the best one, I will say, is love. So thank you for always giving us love beyond the shade. I love you.
Children just growing up. Thank you, Park. Okay, so I have a story about everybody on the stage who has helped me get to where I am, and I'm so excited about that. Okay, so Betty Beth Fled. When she was going through her case, I was working at Lambda Legal, and I was the one who got to travel through the South, out black type by myself, and talk about the trans princess who was fighting for trans rights. And once I ran for office, I got to break decorum and run and give her a hug one night when she made it to the floor. So I'm so thankful for this evening because I have a story about each one of you all, and we don't do this in a silo. We're able to do the things we do because of our community and folks. So then Larry, I was at the State House. Okay, so, you know, I'm a little crazy. So I would leave out of the chamber, and I had certain people outside who I could go and curse to. And so Larry was one of those persons, and so I'd come out and I'd just be like, ah. Larry's so cool and calm. He had all his papers and stuff. He's just like, and I go back into the chamber. But coming in as a newbie, having Larry be there with his experience with working across coalitions, he was an invaluable resource and friend to me. And I couldn't have been the representative I was without you, Larry. And then Kathy Willard. Okay. So, Kathy was my city.
You tested me.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We're going to start with the good stuff first. So, Kathy Willard was my city council person. And my partner and I went through this whole thing where we got a grant and built a home in Reynoldstown. You know how they leave those little plates outside your house? And it's like 3 o'clock in the morning, clank, clank, when people are like driving across it. So like 5 months later, that was still there. And so we would see Kathy out and stuff like, hey girl, hey, how you doing, how you doing? And then we called her one day and was like, girl, can you move this plate in our house? And the next day, it was gone. She was our favorite. And then when I got hoodwinked into running for office, asked to run for office, Kathy was one of the first persons that I sat down with, and you know, she just kind of laid it out. I was like, yeah, it kind of sucks, but I'm gonna help you get elected. And so she also was someone that I went to the Capitol to on a daily basis, but I'm not really sure we were good together because like we would text each other at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, like freaked out about the day would be. And then like freak out all day long, like what you doing, what are they saying, who's meeting over there, oh my God, what? Ah! And then by 7 o'clock at night, we're like, all right girl, see you tomorrow. But I couldn't have been a legislator and did the good work that I did without Kathy Willard. And then, okay, first Lisa Diane White, and then I'll tell you about Design. So I love Lisa Diane White. First of all, she goes by 3 names. Lisa Diane White, like that's who she is. You know, you got Madonna, but you got Lisa Diane White. Anyway, I love her for that. And we've just been part of a grand sisterhood in the community for so many years. I've admired her work, working with women with HIV and living with AIDS, and just watching her do the work, not only here in America, but y'all know she's staying in South Africa and over in the African continent and stuff all the time. I asked her today, I'm like, are you sleepy? Because like yesterday you were in Africa, now you're in Atlanta. But that just shows her dedication. And for so long, like these are the people that I've looked up to. And to get back to what Larry was saying and what Kathy was saying is, you know, we all have something to do, and let's stand on the shoulders of people. And so Lisa Diane White has been one of those persons where I'm like, oh, I wish I knew that much about HIV. I wish I could be out there helping the sisters. And then, you know, I had the opportunity to MC an event for them a couple of months ago. So this is how cool it is. Like, folks can call you like the week of and be like, girl, somebody canceled. Can you do this? And you're like, I gotta do it. My knee hurts, but I gotta go be there for Sister Love because they've always been there for me. And then to just see the women and the trans women and just people who were fed it, who had never thought they would be here. And most importantly, anyone had never said anything good to them or supported or told them that they were good about the work that they did. So that was amazing. So thanks, Lisa Diane. Which leads into Desan, who is the founder of Sister Love, and just how amazing she is. I don't think I ever heard PrEP associated with women until I heard Sister Love say it. And it kind of rocked my world. I was like, wait, what? Okay, yeah, that makes sense if it makes sense across the board. So just the long time work that everybody up here has done, I could not do any of the work that I've done without these folks being by my side, and so many of you. I'm looking in the audience, and you know, really for anyone who is just walks out of their home every day being who they were called to be, like that's what turns me on, is, you know, seeing folks being able to live their lives. So yeah, I'm a sucker for the movement. I've poured myself for the movement for 30 years. But I enjoy it, and most of all I enjoy it because I like to see us win. I like to see us win backwards because that means we live another day to fight, and that's the big thing that's going on. So I love y'all. I appreciate y'all so much. I'm so proud of each and every one of you. So keep on living.
Thank you, Simone. Okay, so, of course, with our founding Valentines, we also honor people who have passed, and we want to honor their work. So this evening we are honoring Rebecca Ranson. Playwright and actor and community builder Rebecca Ranson penned one of the first plays about AIDS, Warren, in 1984 at 7 stages here in Atlanta. A prolific writer, Rebecca wrote numerous shows and frequently appeared on stage as well, most prominently as a deranged housewife in Jim Grimsley's Mr. Universe. In the 1980s, Rebecca headed up the first Georgia LGBT Arts Consortium, SAME, which stands for Southeastern Arts and Media Education. and produced a constant stream of LGBT cultural events for all audiences. A high point was the premiere of her show, Higher Ground, featuring many people living with AIDS at the Georgia World Congress Center in 1988, along with the display of the Names Project AIDS Memorial Quilt. And to honor Rebecca Ranson is, of course, Dave Hayward.
I didn't want to be the person to do this. I wanted someone else to do it, but no one else would do it. So it had to be somebody who knew and loved Rebecca, and I both knew and loved Rebecca. She really changed the whole cultural landscape here. And there was never anything here that, was like Southeastern Arts and Media Education, like SAME. And they also, Georgia Voice also started, Southern Voice, when it was Southern Voice, it started under the auspices of SAME. So they were the first people to publish that too. And of course, Southern Voice became Georgia Voice. So, I mean, she just did so many things where she constantly innovated. And the most amazing, I mean, we thought she was the Energizer Bunny because she had so much energy and she did so many different things. And it was like, wow, how can one person possibly be doing all this? And so she wrote so many shows and was a really outstanding actor too. And then I remember especially when we were going through the AIDS crisis. And Rebecca was such a bastion, such a person you could really go to. And they did, as we talked about, they did that show at the World Congress Center, Higher Ground, and she wrote it, and she had the entire cast was people living with HIV, which was just so great. And I remember when we were losing people left and right all the time, and she said one time, she said, everybody does everything they can, and still people die. But it was just sort of, it was so great to know that we were all in the trenches together. And I mean, she was like a real sort of den mother to us all. And then the last thing, personally, I was writing a lot of reviews of shows, and Rebecca was really a real trooper. And so she was in one particular show, I can't even remember the name of it, but it was sort of a vanity production, and the person who wrote it, and I won't say their name, he cast her in the show, and it was just really badly written, and he directed her terribly. And when you write reviews, and you write in the media, you have to be honest. I mean, you have to have integrity, and if you have to say something's not good, it's not good. So I gave her a really bad review. I felt really badly about it, but it was like, it's just not good, I'm sorry. And I realized it was because she was really, really badly directed. But the thing that was really difficult for me was I had to talk to her like about a week later or so, because Sam was constantly doing so many different things and so many different productions. And I was terrified to call her and talk to her. I thought, oh my God, she's going to just give me a new one. And she was so damn nice to me. It was terrible. It was like she was so saying, hey, how are you? How you doing? How's things going? So anyway, that was my story about Rebecca, and Rebecca lives on in her work. So thanks.
All right, we have come to the end of our program. We have a few things to announce and to say. First off, we want to thank Outfront Theater for letting us have this event this evening. Of course. We want to thank AARP for helping sponsor the refreshments outside. We want to say thank you to Dave Hayward and Touching Up Our Roots for making this event possible. I want to thank you all for coming out on a Tuesday to honor these amazing people on this stage. And of course, I want to thank you all up here for doing the work that you do and making the change so we can live on and prosper and continue the fight, because the fight is not over. Thank you so much. To close out this wonderful program, I'm going to invite Kevin Calhoun on stage, who will read some poetry/lyrics. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Calhoun, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Atlanta Pride Committee of our board. We have some other board members here. We have Brian Roche in the back. We have Tracy. We also have Gabrielle Claiborne. We really, really appreciate the fact that you came this evening to honor all of these wonderful people. It's really great for many of us to see the work that they've done, because typically we see the things that are in the media now, but we don't know what it took to get here. So it's really a wonderful opportunity for us to honor these individuals. We would encourage you to come to some of our other events that we have throughout the year, where you can see some of these people. We also have our history exhibit that happens during our Pride Festival, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing that our committee puts on. Stan Fong in the back helps us do that. So just to close us out, when you think about a lot of the work that they've done, we're standing on the shoulders of giants for the work that we are able to do today. And some of you may be familiar with this song. It's called He Ain't Heavy. It's a long, long road from which there is no return. While we're on the way to there, why not share? And the load doesn't weigh me down at all. He ain't heavy, he's my brother. He's my brother, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. And when I think about the work that they've done, they've pulled all of us along. Simone Bell, Kathy, Vandy, everybody up on the stage. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for recognizing them. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to share with you the love that we have for all these people. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
Kevin, do we get one of those bouquets?
Absolutely.
We were just talking about our Valentines thing.
Oh, but you know what? They don't know where it came from.
They do, because someone posted on her Facebook page.
No, this comes from love. They don't have to know where it was. This is a Whole Foods bouquet. And you have one? Oh, and you have a bag. You have a bag with a gift in it. See,